Sure she does. Good morning, Logan. Are we on? Yes, good morning, Viewpoint, your program of personalities, politicians, and perspectives. We're having a little fun in the studio this morning, a little levity going on. Sorry about that. Both of you.
Oh, you mustn't ever apologize for that.
Well, I've got to get both of our listeners alert to this morning.
Okay.
Oh, the old man is going to wax. Going to go back in history just a little bit with you. First thing we have to do is kudos to Joe Shaler and every volunteer who put all of those flags on the courthouse lawn. I want to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't seen it, get in the car and drive around the courthouse. It's a thrill. It's just a thrill. So congratulations and thank you, a big thank you to the many volunteers who did that and Joe Shaler for making sure it got done.
Amen.
Yes.
May I thank Angie Harrison in Atlanta
Absolutely.
also, because she does it, helps coordinate it in Atlanta. And it's
really
gorgeous,
nice.
Bill.
Yes.
I'm so
Thank
glad to hear
God.
Lincoln's doing it.
It's like driving to
too.
Springfield and going through Sherman.
Yes.
That's a thrill.
Uh-huh.
Yes,
It really
yes.
is. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, thank God for the multitudes of people
Yes.
that do the good things unheralded.
Yeah.
And what do we talk about? Somebody who does a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know, we're screwed up, aren't we? Basically.
No, we just have to be nice on the radio. You know, we don't want to offend anybody. You know, this is. But seriously, no.
Is that new for
today? Talk about
today?
good things being done. Yesterday, the old man went to Decatur. Now, there's an organization in the country. It's nationwide called Dream Flights, and you would Google that by dreamflights.org, and you bring that up on your computer, and you'll get to see what the old man and several of his WW2 companions got to do yesterday. We went to Decatur, and they had this well-organized, and there sits this, looked like a brand-new Stearman, which was not because it's a World War II aircraft, and they had it all cleaned up and polished up, and they gave us rides. Now, the Stearman, for those of you who don't know, it was a biplane. That means two places, folks. The open cockpit, and it was the trainer for thousands upon thousands of men who learned to fly during the Second War. And some of the folks, when it was a Navy plane, they called it the Yellow Peril, because all those planes were painted yellow, and once in a while they dropped out of the sky on them due to somebody's improper handling of them. But in any event, this was a marvelous experience. It was well organized, and we went over there. And speaking of the goodness of people, the fellow that I met on the honor flight some years ago entered my name to be one of those honored, and he came from Springfield to Lincoln and then to Decatur just to pick the old man up. And then, of course,
That's pretty nice.
Yeah, that was very nice. So
Now, this has nothing to do with anything, but it reminds me of George Goebel.
oh,
Remember George Goebel?
Oh, my
George, because you said trainers. The plane was used for training purposes. George Goebel was on the Johnny Carson show in the late 1960s, and they were giving him a real hard time because he hadn't actually served overseas in the war. He was a pilot. He trained pilots in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and it was great. They kept giving him a hard time, and finally he just said, well, I just want to let you know, just think about it. Not a single Japanese fighter pilot got past Tulsa during that whole war.
That was one of the things. And not
I just
only
thought that was the
He was
funniest.
such a fella.
his delivery of the line.
Yes.
His deadpan delivery, it was really, that was
He was
funny.
something.
He was good.
Well, since you got to share, you're happy, and I'm happy for you on that, and I saw you on the T&V, by the way.
My God, is it still on TV?
It was on TV.
You got to find a new carrier.
Now, I had a happy yesterday, too. I have a new great-granddaughter, little Harlow, and all is well with everybody, thank you, God. And I love great-grandkids. They're nice.
It's got to be wonderful.
Is that in her contract? Can she talk about her family like that? Is that in her contract? I just want to make
Find me.
So Judy regaled me all the way from Lincoln, Illinois to Atlanta, Illinois with tales of her great-grandchild, so good for you. Seriously.
Congratulations,
Happy for you.
yeah.
Nicely.
It's a miracle when they're all whole.
Yep.
If the second
Please.
reader
Every
hasn't, second listener hasn't tuned us out already, maybe you ought to get around and introduce our guest. because
Oh,
he's a
yes,
real
I will
important-
be so proud to. We haven't
I have been
had...
talking anonymously. Maybe we need to keep it that way.
No, not at all. Oh, please, no. No. Bill Thomas has been with us before. He's a marvelous guest, and he's so
Too many
well-versed
times.
on so many subjects.
Is that the way
But
you wrote it?
This,
Yeah,
that's what he wrote.
I think she left out an adjective,
That's
but
what
that's
he
okay.
wrote. But today, he's going to talk about his business, and it's called Logan County Development, and God knows we need it. We really do. Drive down Woodlawn sometime. However, unfortunately, as I understand it, Lincoln opted out of economic development. I don't know why or who in their infinite wisdom made that decision. Seems like a poor one to me.
Well, no, let's be fair.
Why?
That's what we do up here.
Let's try to be fair. Yes. Lincoln didn't so much opt out as there's always been. I've been involved in economic development in the county for a little over 5 years now, and I knew the folks that were doing it prior to me, and it's just been fascinating. I usually don't talk about this, but there's always been, and I'm curious if you will understand or resonate with what I'm going to say, there's always sort of been a tension between the city of Lincoln and the rest of the county.
Yeah.
Okay?
Why nobody knows.
Why, for sure, no. And I'm sure there are multiple reasons going way back to who laid the rails. But anyway, that's straight from the Music Man. Anyway, and there just reached a point where a decision was made, well, let's hire somebody to focus just specifically on Lincoln. And I can see wisdom in that. If nothing else, if one person's trying to do the whole county, perhaps nobody is going to be satisfied. Well, I'm not getting enough time if you're doing stuff
yes.
elsewhere. So I see some rationale.
You see
to
where it comes from.
Yes. The good thing is our office and Andrea Runge, who is the Economic Development Director for the City of Lincoln, we work together. We're fine. So when we find opportunities to help each other, we do that.
Yeah.
So, but my focus, like you say, Judy, I'm economic development, but for the whole other part of the county.
So
Sans
Burtonview gets covered as well.
Burtonview gets covered. Broadwell gets covered. Broadwell's one of my favorite places in the whole county. I love Broadwell. No, it is.
Burtonville,
It is.
Broadwell, and Burton and Beeson.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Beeson's a great town too. Yeah.
so
They are great towns.
Latham, don't forget
we're
Latham.
very fortunate to live in this part of the country. We
Yep.
really are. It's a great place. We can all testify to the fact that it's a great place to raise your kids.
Yes, that's.
and that's how, by the way, just not that it means anything this morning, but that's how I met this illustrious gentleman. Because of education, is the time I met him, he was a superintendent of.
Oh, don't promote me. I was only principal.
Well, principal, that's close enough. I had grandchildren going to his grade school, and that's how we met Billy Thomas. And
Yep,
Gene and I have
yep.
been very pleased from that day on. What's your biggest challenge as we sit here in the studio this morning, Mr. Thomas?
I think one of the biggest challenges is helping people understand what this job actually is all about. Yeah. If I'm going to turn the tables. What do you think is involved in economic development? How do you do it?
How would you do it?
Yeah, what do you do? What do you have to do to
see,
do it?
that's my question. I can see what the job is. You're trying to bring some entities to the county that will make money for themselves and for the county as well.
Yeah. And it's interesting.
But how you go about it, that baffles me.
There are ways, but I've asked that question of a lot of folks, and that is the answer that you typically get first. Oh, it's to bring new businesses. And you know what? That's
not
like
so.
the tip of a huge iceberg. Because, I don't want to bore you with facts, but 80 to 90% of all new jobs are not created by new businesses opening up. They're created by existing businesses that you help stay in business and grow. So that's really where a lot of my energy and other economic development directors' energy goes, helping our existing businesses retain their business and expand it, because the potential is so great for.
You know, it makes it, just a side comment about that. The other day, one of our friends called a restaurant in Springfield to be about reservations, and she said, the person on the phone said, I'd love to take your reservation, but we're not sure from day to day how many employees we're going to have. And that goes right back to politics in Washington, D.C., and we're not going to expand on that this morning.
Yeah, no, but it's fascinating. I've never seen a job employment environment like we have right now. It is just, unfortunately, amazing in that how difficult it is for employers to find and hire qualified people.
Yes, but what do you think going forward is going to be now that the government has changed its stand on the stimulus payments?
Judy, I'm not going to predict. I think it will eventually get better, but I'm not going to predict because I honestly don't know. But I do know that, again, if we want to go back to what this job is all about, it's primarily about helping keep existing businesses going and expanding them. But then there's a big chunk that we call workforce development. And that's just a fancy way of saying, what can I as an economic development director do to work with places like the community colleges, with Lincoln College, with the local universities, with the trade schools, to ensure that they know what the needs of our businesses and factories are in the area, so they're training people to fill the jobs that we have. Case in point, one of the things I'm proudest of is the work that our office did a couple years ago with Heartland Community College. There is now an option for people living in Lincoln to become certified truck drivers, get their certified driver's license, which is
a substantial job.
A substantial job. And it hit home with me when we were having conversations with Cisco, the big food company down in Lincoln, which is a huge employer. One of their biggest challenges is finding people to drive their trucks. But you want to take a guess how much a beginning truck driver can make a year at Cisco?
I've heard that it's substantial.
It's beyond almost $90,000.
Approaching six figures.
Yes. And it's a good job comparatively, relatively in the trucking world, because it's not overnight. And that's a real limiting factor. That's a tough job to be out on the road all the time like that. But so Cisco had a need, other places had a need, so we worked with Heartland and helped expand their truck driver training school and make it easier for people to sign up and become part of, especially a path to a job at Cisco and other places. You know how sometimes you get into an education program and one of the perks is, oh, you finish this and we can pretty much guarantee you a job at X, Y, or Z. Well, that's the kind of program that we worked to set up to make it more attractive.
It can get.
Yeah.
And speaking of positive, and speaking of jobs, if we don't take, and Judy and I do this thing every Wednesday morning, we fool around and forget about it. We have sponsors that make this program possible and also make our jobs possible. So go right ahead, Mr. Rash. Right back live in the studios here this morning, WLCN, high on the lazy road. Viewpoint would be the program, appearing each Wednesday morning, 08:15 to 0900 hours. Hosted by the delightful Mrs. Busby and an older fellow in the community. And our guest this morning is Mr. Bill Thomas. Bill is associated with Logan County Economic Development, which is a very, very important position, and any community needs economic development. And if you don't think so, drive around the courthouse square. Yeah, so welcome, Bill.
Thank you.
We're happy to have you come with and share your time with us and your expertise and your ideas. For a fellow who came from education, you've made a great commitment to our community.
Thank you. I try to do in addition to teach.
Besides that, you married a very nice lady, and he's got some nice kids.
Thank you. Appreciate that. You were asking me about the job and what actually is involved in it. And I do want to go back to the first thing that we talked about that comes to people's mind immediately, bring in new stuff. But what I want to talk about is just the challenges involved in that too. And I'll use by way of example the new truck stop complex that's
Yeah.
opened up in
Right out
Atlanta.
here.
Have you been up there yet?
I've driven by it, but I haven't been into it.
Oh, you got to go inside and go get a dilly bar at the Dairy Queen and test out the whole thing. But how many years do you think that took to bring to fruition?
Oh my, I can't admit, 8.
Well, no, it didn't take 8. I'm happy it didn't take 8, but it took 5.
Yeah,
It took
I-
5.
It would,
From its initial start,
Yep.
to all this going through this and this and
Yep. And interestingly, and this happens in economic development all the time, we sort of started out not really knowing what we were going to end up with. The concept was we were talking with officials in Atlanta and realizing, hey, we have an interstate interchange. Lots of towns have interstate interchanges and they make money off of them. What do? So ours was sitting there and it was being farmed, okay, which is fine in and of its own right, but we got to thinking, gosh, there are 15 acres here
Oh.
that maybe could support some businesses and bring in a lot of money to the community and some jobs. So the thought process throughout that was, well, we're not sure what we'll do with it exactly, but what we see is the potential.
yes.
Okay, potential beyond agriculture. And there's nothing wrong with agriculture. That supports most of our county and is very important. So the first task was simply, let's see if the city can buy this so that it can then control its development.
its own distance.
Right, its own destiny, if you will. So fortunately, we were dealing with a landowner who was amenable to that, and the city purchased it. Well, then, what do you do? Okay, besides now you got to mow 15 acres.
Yeah.
Put it in alfalfa.
And lo and behold, we're right back on the air after a short break caused by somebody stumbling somewhere in some pole. The light pole went down and we were off the air for whatever reason. And we'll discover that and talk about it for a week next week.
Yeah, that was the longest commercial I've had.
Yeah, really,
Experience, and I don't know
That was a big
since when.
commercial break.
Well, that nature has a way of sending
Yes.
us these reminders that we
Yes, and
aren't
who's
in
in
charge.
Our guest this morning, Mr. William Thomas, Major Domo and making things run up here in Atlanta, Illinois. Logan County Economic Development. And Lord knows, in every community, economic development is a necessity, without which things just kind of dry up. So, Billy, we appreciate your taking your time, and we'll write you an extra check for the time we wasted up here. And just hope Judy and I get one. Hint, hint.
Overtime, huh?
So, let's pass the baton now to Mr. Thomas, and we'll pick up from somewhere. I'm not sure where.
Well, we'll have to see if we can find an opportunity to continue it, because there's a whole lot more that we'll
We
talk
missed a
about
whole
if
bunch,
you
yeah.
want to. Yes. What I'd really like to talk about sometime too is there's a fourth aspect to the job that we do in economic development that it's my favorite. It's my favorite, and it's called fancy terms. It's called capacity building. And that's just a fancy way for saying I get to go out to places like Beeson and Mount Pulaski and Atlanta and New Holland, and the job is to help them there in their small community put in place a group of people to do economic development. It's not like the government coming in or me coming in from and trying to run everything.
From
It's,
there.
You know, it boils down to that old thing, you can give a man a fish or you can teach him how to fish.
There you go.
So this is the teach them, help them learn how to do their own economic development.
And you know, here in Logan County, we are blessed, and I'm serious about this, with some really nice small communities.
Oh, my,
We start
yes.
we're on our right here is Atlanta. We move over to Emden, Hartsburg.
Yep.
And sweat down to Elkhart, go over to Mount Pulaski.
Yep.
There are a number of places I could just drop my anchor in and live there.
Absolutely.
And be very comfortable.
Yeah, and they're all,
Especially Burtonview, Bill.
especially Burtonview, BV, and they're all unique, and that's why you have to do that local focus, because the problems in one place and the challenges are going to be different from another place. You just have to help them learn the tools to develop themselves. So that's what we try to do.
But we just can't sit around and say, well, that's the way things work.
Oh,
If you do that,
No.
there's nothing but regression
right.
as
Right.
opposed to progression. And
But doesn't it take somebody
Yes.
to point out that these are the tools you need to utilize?
Absolutely, and that's what I get to
That's
do
what
as
I'm
part
trying
of
to
my
Bill
job.
Thomas,
yeah.
yeah.
Because so many folks don't realize all the tools that are out there
Well,
available.
no.
Yeah.
They're busy running their gas
Uh-huh.
station, their restaurant, their teaching school, you know,
Yep.
that isn't their emphasis.
Right. Right.
I think we started, what was your biggest challenge? Here we started in the studios here at WLCN on Wednesday morning. What was your biggest challenge face tomorrow morning, Bill?
Oh, tomorrow morning?
Boy.
Well, of late, one of the biggest challenges as a result of the circumstances we all find ourselves in, the government, and I'm fine with this, the government has provided so many different new programs to help out businesses that have been negatively impacted by the COVID pandemic. Keeping up with all those programs and the way they're run and how you have to apply for them so that you can get help to the businesses across the county and the cities across the county, that has become a huge part of my job now that was not there before.
The
But you
other
see, you
day,
said something. Excuse me, Judith. Go right ahead, please, dear.
the other day, they said that of every $4 spent in this country, one of them is a government dollar.
Yeah, that doesn't
Is
surprise
that
me.
the good news or the bad news?
Well, it's the news, is what it is. It's the reality. And what I have to make sure in my position is that New Holland gets to take advantage of that opportunity, that Atlanta does, that Mount Pulaski. For example, one of my favorites has been the state of Illinois, because of money it's gotten from the federal government, just instituted a program 2 months ago to give fire departments the opportunity to apply for up to $15,000 to make up for losses from fundraisers that they would have had in 2020.
Because COVID
But
stopped.
yes, and I thought that is brilliant. Let's
Yes, it
use
is.
this money for a really, really good cause. So that became part of my job for a few
Now,
weeks. Make sure all the fire departments
Yes.
knew what to do and how to access this.
Well, because somebody has to tell you, you know, you
Oh,
don't just
yeah.
get these things out of the blue.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the kind of the key word there, help develop. You said earlier on in your conversation that you were all right with that help for. Philosophically, I'm not all right with the government passing out money because it makes takers out of a lot of people instead of people who want to do things and try. But a lot of people, well, for instance, I know people who won't work because of the government dole. Well, that's just wrong, and that's one of the reasons why people like restaurants and any kind of business find it difficult to find good employees, because people can stay at home and say, well, I can just sit at home, and that destroys initiative.
Right, and I'm all for initiative too, but I'm in my position. I have to deal with, okay, it's there, it's already happened. These programs are in place. So what's my responsibility? My responsibility is to help make sure that businesses and cities that can take advantage of this help get it.
That they're responsible.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, there's a matter that I know nothing about at all, and it's called grant writing. And I think that's probably an art into and unto itself, because
That makes you giggle.
People can write grants properly can do an awful lot of good.
I think after I'm done doing what I'm doing now, that might be something that I would actually do, is help people learn how to write grants. Because it's not, nobody taught me, but I managed to figure it out.
You muddled your way through some of it.
Oh yes, and become fairly successful at it over the years. And you're right, it is an art.
Yes.
It really is an art. Yeah. So
It has to be done just so, doesn't it?
648-5510. If anybody has any questions about, you don't have to talk about economic development. You might have a direct question about something or some issue in your community that Mr. Thomas may help answer. And if he doesn't, he'll finesse the
if I
answer
don't, yeah,
anyway.
I'll make something up if I have to. If I have to. So how much time do we actually get?
I haven't any idea what Mr. Rice.
Whenever you want to quit, I don't
We
care.
just, we just
Jim is so exact.
Wow.
run down.
Well, I usually don't eat lunch until noon, so I've got
Yeah, we'll give you time. We'll give you time to run to the refrigerator and pull out a beer if you want.
Oh, all right. All right.
The challenge of trying to, just dream up off of the desktop something that might be an initiative for some communities, such as this truck stop that we alluded
yes.
to earlier out here on the side of Atlanta. That's a great opportunity for this small community.
Yeah.
And economically, it means a lot of money.
Oh my gosh, it does. And we can go back to that and finish that story. So we last left, boys and girls, when the city of Atlanta had purchased these 15 acres out at the interstate.
Right.
And then they realized, okay, what do we do with this besides just mow it every week?
It's like chasing lions. You got to have a plan.
You got to have a plan. So that's what we did. We sat down and decided, okay, well, let's not wait to see what might happen. Let's decide what we want to happen out there. And that's the key difference. That's the ability to think strategically. That's what it boils down to.
It sounds so simple.
Oh, but it's not.
But it's so basic.
It sounds so simple, but one of the hardest questions for people to answer is, well, what do you want to happen? Okay, that is not often an easy question.
And what you want to have may not be what
That's right.
anybody else would like to have.
That's right. So, but we did. We gathered as a group and sat down, and our inspiration was, well, what do you usually find at an interstate interchange? Well, you find a gas station, you find fast food, maybe some other businesses that support people traveling up and down the highway. So we put it in our minds, okay, we're going to see if we can entice a truck stop or some sort of transportation-related business there. And fortunately, a developer came along who wanted to do that same thing. He did all his homework, did a big feasibility study, because, of course, the first reaction from some folks was, oh, you got to be crazy. You're going to put a truck stop there? Don't you realize what's 5 miles up the road?
Yeah.
The Dixie truck stop? Well, yes, but they hired the professionals, did a feasibility study. Yes, there's enough traffic on Interstate 55 to justify that if it's done right. So, long story short, we ended up working with this developer who has been amazing to work with. His name is Bishop Patel. He and his family own a hotel down in Jacksonville. They've owned another gas station, several other enterprises, and they were looking for something new. And fortunately, they came into our sphere.
And you had the ground.
We had the ground,
Yeah.
and we had put in one of those tools that we learned about, a tax increment financing district, TIF.
Okay.
Yep. Don't want to get too technical, but it's a way to help motivate developers to come and offer them some incentives to develop. And through that and a combination of being very open and welcoming, they came and located in Atlanta.
But you have to have somebody who knows about TIF.
Yes.
You know, that's the thing. You can't just take me, who's pretty good at washing and ironing, and decide that I'm going to decide what we're going to do with this 15 acres. That ain't going to work.
Right, and that's where every economic development director, if they know their business, they know about those tools. And then their job is to help others learn about them and see the value of them and adopt them. Because that's something that had to go through the city. The city had to adopt and decide, yes, we're going to establish a TIF district.
Well, they put their name on the line.
They put their name on it. The city also did a very smart thing, and I helped Mount Pulaski do this same thing through my position. I think maybe we've talked about this before. We now also have in Atlanta what's called a business improvement district. And that's a fancy way of saying we drew a line on the map encompassing downtown Atlanta and going all the way out to the truck stop. And we said, okay, within this area, the city council is going to vote to slightly bump up the sales tax that is collected. And we bumped it up by 1%, so 1 penny on every $100 or $1 that is spent there. That 1 penny goes into a special fund that can only be used to help the businesses in that area. Help them stay open, help them improve. Like we just spent quite a bit of money helping the Country Air improve its parking lot and put in that new digital sign that's out in front of it.
But
That's all paid for by business development money.
And the corollary of that is the community then gets money from this tax money
Yes.
to do other things.
And
it's kind of
it's-
begetting.
It's a nice cycle. The Country Air is doing a land office business, so it's generating
And
more
rightfully so,
sales
'cause
tax.
they do a good job.
So they do a good job. That's more pennies collected on every dollar
Right.
that goes into this fund, which makes more money available to it and the other businesses to help them out. That same fund do you know about the new little Sip Shack drive-through coffee place?
Yeah, I read about that.
Downtown? Okay. They applied for monies from, I think it was the TIF fund, to help them get started. Do you know the new laundromat in Atlanta? That place had been closed for years. And thanks to the TIF fund and the Business Improvement District fund, there was money available to help the young couple that brought that laundromat back to life.
Now, they're working hard to do that because that is
Oh,
hard
my.
work.
Yes.
But the thing of it is, they were able to get a handhold as they started to climb that mountain.
Yep.
And it takes a lot of handholds.
And the way Atlanta's principle is, we want to partner with businesses. So it's typically a 50-50 kind of deal. Okay, what's this project going to cost? Okay, we'll help you out with up to 50% of this project. And you know, as a businessman, that's a pretty big incentive.
Oh, you bet.
If
It's a make or break for a lot of
it
people.
can be a make or break, especially when you're starting out. The folks that own and operate the laundromat, one of them he's a great guy, Jared. He's a mechanic that works at Mattingly Automotive. But he looked across the street, saw that empty building, and had a dream. And because the city of Atlanta had these tools in place, they were able to help him. And the same thing's happening down at Mount Pulaski. I don't know if you ever get over to Pulaski.
It's a
but,
great community.
Oh, it's a great town. Do you know Johnson's Hardware?
Yes, I do.
Okay, they used to be just south of the square. I don't know if you're aware, they've sold that building, or they're in the process of selling their old building. They've moved into where the old grocery store used to be on the north edge of town, expanded it. That's all because of Business Development District monies that Pulaski has. They were able to help do that. And there's an example of taking an existing business, expanding it, making it produce even more revenue and sales tax. It's just a win-win.
Which you've already said is the floor to the whole
It's the
business.
floor, 80 to 90%.
It's a begetting process.
Uh-huh.
One begets the next.
Yep. Yep.
And I go back to somebody like Bill Thomas here in the Logan County Economic Development. Somebody has to know where to dot an I and cross a T, or somebody has to know how to go, where to for grants.
Yep.
And not only you have to know where, but how to write that grant. And that's, as we said earlier, that's a technique unto its own. And
Yeah.
it takes somebody who knows what they're doing, pluses or minuses.
I'll give away the secret to writing a good grant. And you'll think it's just ridiculous, but the secret is you read that grant application and all of them ask, answer this question, this question, this question, and this question. Describe your program and tell us X, Y, and Z. You read that and you read it again, and then you read that question again, and then you only answer exactly what they have asked you about. And what I can remember, the first couple grant applications I wrote and the others that I read, oh, you want to add a whole lot more. You want to tell them all about blah, blah, blah.
Well,
no.
Window dressing. You
Yeah.
don't need window dressing.
And
Facts.
it boils down to, well, what's going to happen with your grant application? Your grant application is going to be put in a stack with 20 others and put on Judy's desk, and Judy has to read all those. What does Judy want to know?
What captures her attention?
She only wants to know the answer to the questions that
Yes.
were asked.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's the first secret. You just shut up and answer
Yeah,
what they want.
don't get so flowery.
Yeah, you don't need to.
And
You
Sergeant Friday says, just the facts, ma'am.
just
Yeah,
the facts, ma'am.
Yeah. Go ahead, Judith Kay. Because I do this because I take too much mic time, and I have my senior partner, and I have to defer to her and be nice to her.
Oh my God, Judy is speechless.
And I find that.
Now, that's highly different,
Yes,
isn't
that
it?
is highly different. Highly different.
Good.
No, really, I think that this is so interesting because when you say these facts, they're obvious, but we don't know them, you see, until
and-
somebody tells us.
But you know what? The same can be said about in my opinion, the same can be said about any profession. There are reasons why we have professions that are based on certain bodies of knowledge, and you go into them and you learn that body of knowledge, and the rest of the general public doesn't know it. That's what makes you a professional.
Yeah, if I'm going to have this nice truck stop, they don't care that I've got 6 trees on the property.
No.
That's all window dressing.
Yeah.
They want just the facts, like Bill says.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, just the facts are, in any community, particularly those, we're kind of provincial about our little communities here. We're pretty proud of our
Yep.
little Logan County area here. We've got some great communities. And I could, I often think if I were, I'm retired now and I live at the Christian Village and I'm very happy about that. I could live in any one of our little small communities. I could adapt in it because they have things which are necessary.
Yep.
And the main thing is people care.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's the bottom line. People care enough to do something. Now, have you anything else on the drawing board, so to speak?
Well, lots, and it all falls
I'm
under
glad to hear
yet
that.
another category that I'm not sure people think about a lot, but oh my gosh, the potential is huge. And I'm really involved in and passionate about tourism,
Yes.
Yes.
and there's a reason for that, and it's money.
Yes, it is.
So let's just play with each other a minute as a way to illustrate why tourism is so important. Forget tourism for a minute. We already have a local economy here. And let's just pretend that the three of us, Judy, Bill, and Bill, are the local economy. And Bill owns a business and we're customers. So Judy and I are paying Bill for his service. Okay? So we're giving him money that we already have, and he's taking it, and then he goes and, let's say Judy owns a restaurant, he goes and eats at Judy's restaurant, and then that money goes to Judy. And then Judy might buy something from me. The money just sort of circulates between the three of us. Now the interesting thing is, if that just keeps happening, we keep Bill in business, and we maybe keep Judy's restaurant in business, but do we ever bring in any more money to the
New
cycle?
money.
New money, outside money,
Yeah.
to make the base of the economy grow? No, we're not. We're just exchanging money that's already here, okay? That's where tourism comes in. Tourism dollars are absolutely golden because it's people coming from outside of your community, dropping off their dollars, and then leaving. So it's adding wealth to your local economy in a way that you can't do in any other way. You can't do it with each other unless you inherit some money and pump it in that way personally. But that's why I'm so passionate about tourism, because I recognize the tremendous benefit.
That's the crux
Yes.
of improving.
Uh-huh.
Exactly.
and hence the beauty of the new truck stop.
Oh, Judy, thank you.
Oh, you're
yes,
welcome.
exactly. What a great setup. Yeah, that's what clicked in our mayor in Atlanta's mind. And I love the way he described it. He goes, that's just a golden pipeline of money, the interstate, going by us. And we got to figure out a way to divert some of that gold, that
Siphon
money.
off some of that.
Yeah, siphon it off. And that's what's happening. That's what's happening. Yeah.
Our guest this morning was, go ahead, Brady. You started to make a comment before I close this program.
You just do whatever you're going to do, boy.
I do have a referee's jersey out in my car
Yes.
if we need it.
Well, Bill Thomas, we appreciate your giving of your time this morning and your ability to kind of go with the flow when we lost our power. That's what Bill Thomas and the Bill Thomases in the world do. They go with the flow and they adopt. And thank God we've got somebody who's able to shift around and adopt. I hope we've answered any questions you have about. Leave one word with you. Be nice to these folks who cater to our tourists. The tourists are the lifeline of our particular communities. One final comment. Thank you, Joe, Sheila, and all the folks, as I did it earlier on. That was an hour or so ago we came on the air.
Yeah, I'd almost forgotten.
But anyway, I had a lot of folks on their hands and knees planting flags in the courthouse, and it's just beautiful, and we appreciate your efforts. Thank you very much for Viewpoint.